Hi, my name's Matt Roberts. I'm a third year medical student at the University of Alberta. I also have a bit of a background in audio engineering, so I wanted to share some tips on how to improve your podcast audio quality. My first tip is to have the microphone an appropriate distance away from your mouth. So, a good rule of thumb is the distance between your outstretched pinky and thumb between the microphone and your mouth. Uh, some people think that they need to have their lips right up on the microphone grill, but that's going to produce a lot of hard S and T sounds and maybe get a lot of mouth sounds like, kind of like your lips smacking together and that kind of thing, which can be quite distracting. My next tip is axis. So this just means you want the microphone pointed at your mouth and you want your mouth pointed at your microphone, roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that's the general idea. Um, some microphones you can adjust how they pick up sound between omni and choroid. Just if that's an option, go with choroid. However, if it's confusing, then either would work fine as long as you're in a quiet room, which would be ideal anyways to get the best audio quality. Okay, if you have a problem with plosives, so plosives are basically if you make a P sound and you put your hand in front of your mouth, you can feel the gust of air from the P's. And if this gust of air hits the microphone, then it can cause some nasty distortion. So if that is a problem for you, you can get a pop filter, which is a piece of nylon that blocks that gust of wind, or you could try speaking slightly off axis. So you just aim your mouth so that that gust of wind doesn't hit the microphone dead on, or you could move just a bit further away from the microphone. This may not be a problem for you at all, but if you do notice it in the recording, then those are some tips on how to deal with it. Okay, here's a picture just to show you. It doesn't have to be that complicated. This is a great microphone placement, great setup that would probably produce some great audio quality. Okay, the next thing is we want to set the level so that we get a strong signal, but we don't get distortion. So on my setup, I have a gain knob and I have a little light that goes on when I'm peaking. So basically, you want to speak at the maximum possible volume that you are going to speak during your podcast, and just turn up the gain until it gets to the point where it is peaking, that it just peaked a bit, and then back it off so that you are safely out of that zone, because better to record a bit quieter and not have distortion. With other microphones, you may, I think you can set it up in Windows. If you click on the speaker and you go to sounds and then recording, and then click on your microphone and hit configure and set up microphone, it'll actually run a little wizard which will talk you through setting the volume or the gain to an appropriate level. Here in Audacity, if you click on monitoring, it will show you the mic levels without having to record anything. So this is a nice level. If it was not getting past, say, -48, then it wouldn't be strong enough. Or if it was ever getting anywhere close to 0, it would be too strong because it would be at risk of distortion. And you can set the recording level over here. So I'm going to leave mine on 100% because it's all the way up and I'm still not anywhere near peaking, so that's great. Once you've done that, I would just record a little bit of audio to make sure that everything sounds good. If you have any problems, you can troubleshoot them with the tips I've already given you. I would just record a little bit of audio to make sure, okay, that seems like it sounds pretty good. So now we're ready to record our podcast. Type 1 diabetes in children is a condition in which your child's body no longer produces an important hormone, insulin. Type 1 diabetes in children used to be known as juvenile diabetes or insulin-dependent diabetes. Okay, so let's just say that was the whole podcast there. Now we're going to do a little bit of audio processing on it. So I just hit Control-A to select the whole thing. Then I'm going to Effect, Normalize. Basically what Normalize does is it amplifies everything to a peak amplitude of 0 decibels. So basically the maximum you can amplify it without causing any of that distortion that we mentioned earlier. So there you go. Now it's louder. I deliberately left some silence at the end of my recording here. Just going to listen to it. So you can hear there's a little bit of kind of like room noises, a little bit of hum from the electrical interference in the microphone. So I can eliminate that by going to Effect, Noise Reduction. I just highlighted that. I listened to it to make sure that there were no sounds, just that kind of ambient noise in the background. And then I just go Get Noise Profile. Then it analyzes that to figure out what frequencies are involved in the noise. And then I go back to Effect. I hit Control A to select everything. Go back to Noise Reduction. And then I hit OK. And then if I listen to this again, it's much quieter. So that just kind of gives me more of a pristine recording. Okay, the next thing I want to do is compression. So I'm going to hit Control A again and just select everything, and then I'm going to go back to compression. So basically what compression does is it makes everything a consistent loud volume. This is helpful so that when people are listening to your podcast, for example, in a car, there aren't any quiet bits that maybe they would miss due to the background noise in the car, maybe the sound of the traffic or whatever. So you can just copy the settings that I've got for you here. There's some pretty conservative, just mild compression to help make your podcast easier to hear in noisy environments. There you go. You can see it just kind of boosted everything so things are more consistent, similar volume. Great. So now I'm just going to show you how we can pop in the sound clips for Pete's cases. So let's go File, Audio, Import here, and I'm going to get the intro clip. Great. Just as an aside, because that clip was in the M4A format, in order to import it, you do need to install the FM MPEG import export library. And while you're at it, you probably want to install Lame, which will allow you to export to MP3. So if you just Google installing and updating Audacity and you go to the help file, it'll give you some pretty good directions on how to do that. Okay, so Pete's cases, this here is a stereo recording, and I recorded in mono, so I'm just going to split this stereo track to two mono tracks. They're both identical, so I'm just going to copy one of them and then go back here, paste it at the beginning, and there you go. So if I just listen to this.
Welcome to Pediatric Podcast for PedsCases.com.
Type 1 diabetes in children is a condition in which your child's... Okay, everything sounds awesome, so I'm going to export as an MP3. I'm going to call it pedcases.mp3. Down in quality, I'm going to select insane so that we get the best quality possible since you spent such pains to get good audio quality. And just replace it. There you go. And that should pretty much do it. There are a couple plugins that are in GarageBand that aren't in Audacity. So one is a de-esser. So that is basically a plugin or an effect in GarageBand that removes those S and T sounds. So if you find yourself having a problem with them, you could try that. Another is the noise gate. So if there are still sounds in the background that aren't removed by that noise reduction effect that we use back there, you can use noise gate. Basically, what noise gate does is everything below a certain volume, it just turns down to complete silence. So it will, the gate will open and let the sound of you talking through, and then it'll shut in between you talking and make that complete silence so you don't hear those background noises. So those can both be plugins for Audacity that you can download and install. They're built into GarageBand, so I thought I would mention them, but I didn't want to make this too complicated. Um, so I didn't want to go into that for Audacity. But I hope those tips are useful. They're just very basic, but I think they could really dramatically improve the quality of your recordings versus if you didn't know about any of these ideas. The biggest thing is the getting the correct mic placement, which is just uh, again doesn't have to be very complicated. Something like this is gonna be great. Um, and then I think the normalization and the compression are also going to be really helpful to ensure that things are at a good volume, so that people don't have to crank the podcast up, and then when they get a notification on their phone or something, the notification is thunderously loud because those notifications have been already compressed and normalized. Uh, okay, all right. Thanks for your attention, and I hope that was helpful.